This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. Hi, this is Joe Rabil with Invest Like a Pro, and today I'm going to give you an update of the stock market. Now, I'm doing this at Thursday evening for Friday morning. Before I get into that, I did want to mention that I have a new service that I'm offering. And I think a lot of you might have an interest in. In fact, a few of the people who watched this Invest Like a Pro kind of gave me the idea. And I started this about 6 months ago and started putting it together. So it's a trend and momentum course for $100 a year. I'm going to keep adding content to it, but I go through basically the foundation of everything that I look at in order. And so if you click on this, so essentially you go from rabilstockresearch.com and you go to the services page. If you click on that, it shows up trend and momentum course. If you click on there, it'll take you in. It'll show you, the foundation course is what I'm starting with. I'm going to add other parts to the course, but take a look if you have an interest. All right, and then what I wanted to do, I want to start by showing you actually something from the course that I go into a lot of detail on. I talk about this zigzag in terms of trend structure, and I explain how this is actually at the top of the market when the market peaked. It gave a bearish signal to the downside. And now for the first time, we're reversing that signal. We're getting an up signal now where we've taken out we went from a new low to a new high and then came back and made a higher low and then a higher high. And that's a reversal of the trend. We haven't done that since this peaked here and we've been in a downtrend. We've made a high, you see how we made a higher bottom and a higher high, but then turned down. And then we did the same thing here. And then we did the same thing. We made a higher low and then a higher high, and then we turned down. This is the first time we've actually completed the reversal of the trend. So I wanted to point that out. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to go through a long, prolonged period, okay? But there are other reasons why I'm thinking that we could be working our way back up towards this next resistance zone. So that's kind of the start of this. Let's get into the market conditions, though. One change in the market conditions in terms of the trend is the daily has turned positive now. I'll go into that in a second. And I'm actually calling the daily momentum positive too. It's a little bit of a jump, a little bit of a leap, but I'm going to show you why I did that. And we'll get into that in a second after I'm done with the rest of this. Now, the volatility is neutral, but look at what's happened here. This is kind of interesting. So last week I turned it positive because this was down, but it hadn't turned down yet. The 18-day had not turned down yet. But then for one day, it was positive, because this was below a declining line. And now with this big move, the last few days, actually yesterday was a big move down. And then this is a huge move to the upside, is causing a spike in the volatility. Very rare to have an up move cause a spike in the volatility. But I will tell you this, that I actually think that's a positive in this situation, because it's a volatility move to the upside, showing a dynamic move to the upside. Now, if I'm right about that, this will continue to trend to the upside. It might pause or pull back first. We'll get into that, but it's probably going to trend to the upside, and this should start to drift down and come back down through this low. So if you look at what happened here, we went up and came down and then rallied up one more time, and then when it turned down, it was kind of more of a trending phase. So if this can turn back down through here, then I think we'd have to have a lot of respect in the upside potential in the near term. If we go to the weekly chart, this is slowing down. It's starting to flatten out. And again, if we see any more upside progression where the volatility shrinks, this could come down and this could quickly roll over. Now, as I've pointed out in the past, when that happens, it's usually pretty important. You can see the turning points and how meaningful they can be. So we want to keep an eye on this. We'll just keep doing this on a weekly basis to see when the next real shift takes place. I mean, we don't know how long this rally is actually going to take place, but I do think, based on the fact of what I'll describe here in a minute, I do think we want to push a little bit higher for now. The overbought oversold is pretty much neutral, 61, 62%. It's It's not overbought, not oversold. We're working off this little mini divergence that formed. It's really even hard to call it a divergence, but it really was. It did make a little higher low, and we worked our way up. And then we worked our way up to the 18, and then we paused. And then the question was, is the daily chart going to turn down, or is it going to keep moving to the upside? And if that's the case, then we can go the next leg. And it looks like we're going to go the next leg. And the other thing that I do like is that the sentiment isn't shifting. It's not changing. It's not getting more bullish. I was a little worried that maybe people would start throwing in the towel and getting more bullish. Maybe that comes in the next week with this big up move, but we'll have to watch. At some point, we're going to see as this works its way back up. If it gets up like it did the last time and we get a decent amount of bulls showing up, then we could start to look for it to be a bit of a problem. Right now, I still consider this to be a positive right now. Okay, so let's go and look at the individual time frames. And nothing's really changed on the monthly other than the fact that we are respecting. So this line is still rising, okay? And we came down and kind of threatened it, but we're getting back above it, okay? And there's just not a whole lot of information that we're going to get from this right now. This market could rally up like this and then turn back down, and it really these wouldn't have any effect on that. So we don't want to be too hypersensitive unless this is giving something glaring, which is like when this was reversing to the downside. And a lot of times what I do with this is I like to draw a trend line on the blue line, on the MACD line sometimes. I learned this from Gerald Appel's original work, where he wrote it way back. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's almost like a little pamphlet. And that's the first book that I read on MACD. And he drew trend lines on the MACD to get a little bit of an edge when you get the opportunity. You actually have to have a higher bottom, like where it pulls back and goes to a new high, where you have a hitch along the way and you can draw a trend line in and you can get a little bit of an earlier signal. That early this year, that was a pretty good signal. And then you got confirmation on the break of the signal line. And, we've been down ever since. But like I've been saying, we've worked off a lot of that overbought condition. We've come down to this prior area. So I don't want to get to the point where I'm saying I can't turn bullish unless this comes down to the zero line. I think we have to accept that this is not sensitive enough. Now, as this has come down a lot, what really intrigued me was this divergence in the MACD. And what I've been saying for anyone who's watching this new, is that we have this MACD divergence in place. We have a divergence on this ADX, but the ADX is still above 25. It had been above 25 through this whole move. So can we really turn bullish in the momentum when the ADX looks like that? I really can't. Even though we had a momentum divergence in MACD. What I say is that we can get a pretty good rally even with the ADX looking like that. And you have to accept that can happen. And this thing could go, for all I know, we're going back up in here. And I'll tell you why in a second. And so you can't get too overly consumed about this ADX pattern. If there's divergence here and there's divergence here, we have to accept that short term we could rally, and then we have to look at every time we rally up. So we rallied up to the 18. Okay, we rally up to the 18, we get to the zero line here. Now how do we handle this? Do we pull one of these where we roll over and break down, or do we come back up through here? Because what I've been saying all along is we broke the trend line and this was the 2, right? We come back, we pull back, and now this is a 3. We've confirmed the up move with a 3. And not only that, we did it by breaking back above the 18 week. Now, I think you get a little bit more confirmation of a line, of a break in a moving average if we close above it and then the next week we follow through and take out the high of this bar that closes above it. So we got a little bit of work to do. Friday will be important. We want to see this have a decent day and not give back a whole lot tomorrow. For one thing, we want to make sure that this MACD line does close above its signal line, and that confirms the divergence. But I think just based on what we're seeing, the volume action, the fact that the reason why I turned the daily momentum positive is because we had a successful pinch play where we cross back, and now it looks like we're going to get back above the 0 line. Now, I wouldn't take this pinch play with all this noise that we've had in the market. I really wanted to just see, are we going to take out the lows or are we going to take out the highs? Now that we're taking out the highs, I think there's a pretty high probability we're going to go up towards the 18-month moving average, which is up at this prior peak. And I like the fact that green DI is finally breaking out. You see on this last move, green DI did not. We had a pretty good move to the upside, but green DI couldn't even get above 25, and it definitely didn't take out the red peak. This time, not only did we take out 25, we took out the prior red peak. I think that's kind of pretty bullish evidence. Now, I always like to see a pivot take place where this holds like that. But based on what the 0 line action with the MACD and the duckbill look to the MACD, that little duckbill is usually a bullish sign when I see it. So I'm leaning towards this being continuation signal, getting back above the 18. So if we're getting back above the 18, what's the next target line? The next target line for me is the 18-month line, which is up at, let's pull this up on the S&P just so we know the number. That's it's somewhere in the 4250 area. Could be 4200 even. Could be up to 4,300, somewhere in that zone is what I would be looking for a target move. Now, I do want to see a little bit of confirmation come Monday, but the reality is that with this divergence in this price action, I think we have to have a lot of respect for what's going on. With that, I would just say we got to. I don't have a problem playing the spider for this move, for a move up into this range. If you're going to play the individual stocks, you got to get entries. You got to look for potential setups. And actually, just looking at the hourly, I probably would look for the next opportunity in a pullback closer to these lines. And it might be higher. It might push higher and then pull back. But expect 4,000. I mean, it's a big round number. Expect that to be some resistance. It should provide a pullback, maybe towards the breakout area. And that might be what we're looking for as the next opportunity to be kind of a buyer into this move the way it's playing out. Now, if we come in Friday morning, this market opens up and they just start blowing it to the downside, then we know that this is just another false move that it doesn't have as much strength to it as I'm insinuating right now. I don't think that's very likely, but this still qualifies as a bear market. We're still below a declining 18-month line. So I'm not going out there saying, I don't want to feel like you want to go buy the whole world right now. All right. You still got to pick your spots. You still got to pay attention to risk reward. You still got to do all those things because I do think this is more of a trading move right now. But I would want to try and participate. Look for your entries and see if you can try and participate with some attractive patterns. So that's the update for the week. Go ahead and let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thanks.